Hello, hello. Thank you for purchasing the Foxy Rag. I thought this project I would actually do as a video for people who have bought the rag, so you can see what I'm going to do with these particular project printables that came with the magazine. So I've printed them. The first thing I'm going to do is cut them out. I've cut the pieces, and there's quite a few steps that I'm going to take, but you could make this so much more simple if you want to. But the idea was, obviously there's a sewing theme to this particular rag, and you could give this as a gift or hang it on your tree or just send it as happy mail. Okay, so what I am going to be using is the kit. I've got a couple of pieces of cardstock. I am going to be using a piece of, this is a linen, hemp actually, this is a piece of hemp, but any fabric that you want to use is fine. I have some felt. Unfortunately, I can't find my cream, but I've got some coloured felt. I've got some pins and some needles. I'm using a pair of pinking shears, but you can use plain scissors. And I'm going to sew, but you can always hand sew, you don't have to use a machine. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is make up the actual box. So I am using Fabri-Tac. Now, if you have the ability to print on a thicker cardstock, that's great, but I've printed onto heavyweight matte photo paper, and it's got a little bit of thickness to it, but I'm going to mount it onto a piece of, I think this is 180 GSM cardstock. Okay, that's cut out and should be dry. So I've got my hole punch, I've got a bone folder, and I've got my straight edge. You don't have to use this. Obviously, you can use any size hole punch. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to just use this to, I mean, it's not a perfect fit, but that's okay. Doesn't matter. If you can see, the hole is not the same size. Well, that went flying, don't know where. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm lining up with the, I've used a dotted edge, so it's kind of stitchy looking. And I'm just going to fold it one way, and then I'm going to fold it the other. I'm going to use my bone folder to burnish that down. And that's okay. And now I'm going to fold down the side. Actually, this side we don't have to, because we know where the lines are, because it's where we've cut our M shape, I guess you'd call that. I'm going to use my bone folder again and just force that against that crease. I mean, I've probably gone to the extreme of using a cardstock that's now thicker than required, but I don't mind. I'm quite happy with this thickness. And again, just going to burnish that down. Okay, so that will glue along that seam. Not going to glue yet. Okay, so that's going to be the front of our gift box. Now, this bit is a little bit more tricky. What I have been doing, but I've only used paper so far, is just forcing this bend a little bit. Okay, to start with, I'm just putting my finger underneath and forcing that fold. Okay, so that's our rough shape ready. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to glue this edge. Now I'm going to put, just make sure that's nicely folded. I'm going to put a bead of glue down the edge of the tab here, and then down here. A little bit in the middle. I'm not going right to the very edge because I know the box is not perfect. And then I'm going to run a bead down the edge of the outside of the box. And then we're going to close that up. Now it's going to take a little bit of pressure because the cardstock is quite thick down there. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to ink this. Okay, so starting from the back, I'm going to pop in my tucks. And you might just want to pop your hand up to just double check that. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. And then we're going to fold in the other side from the back. I'm just going to just want to make sure you've nipped those edges. Okay, this is quite a sturdy box once it's made, and I'm just going to do the same with the top, and this is where you can make sure you've got that nice neat top to that. Okay, so that's our box ready to go. If you want to, you can just ink your corners. So now we're going to move on to the bits to go inside our little gift. We are going to make a tiny little needle book. Very, very simple. You don't actually have to sew this at all if you don't want to. It can all be done with glue. So I have cut out I've folded a piece of cardstock in half, and I have given it just a couple of millimeters all the way around. You don't actually have to do that if you don't want to. You can cut it flush. So what I'm going to do is take my hemp fabric. I've used quite a thick one, so the glue hopefully will not show through. And very simply, you just decide which is the inside and which is the outside. And on the outside, I'm going to just put a bead of glue around the edge and fill that in. Very, very simple. Put that down onto there. And I'm going to cut this almost flush to this, because if I make this too much bigger than the ephemera piece, it won't fit in our gift box. So that is our little cover. I'm going to ink this piece. Okay. Okay, so that is our little cover. Okay, very straightforward. Now I'm going to choose a piece of felt, and I'm going to, again, keeping it simple, I'm just going to lay this down. Okay, I'm going to use a biro. I'm going to make a mark here and here and here and here. Okay. we're going to be cutting inside of that line anyway. Okay. Now I'm going to cut, I'm using the outside of my scissors with that line, so I know this is going to be so this is not perfect, but it's going to go inside here. So I'm going to fold it in half, just so we've got a little crease along there. Pop that inside here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run a straight stitch up here. So that's my little straight stitch, and that's it's not perfect again, but nothing I ever do is perfect, so you know, I'm okay with that. I'm going to ink around the edge of the little book, and then I'm going to ink the spine too. There we go. So there is our very, very simple little needle book. Okay, so I have this side. I'm going to pop in some little pins. Okay, and I also have a little button threader, and I have a couple of small needles. I'm going to put those in there. Okay, with garment pins. So I'm going to take my garment pin and I'm going to thread that there, and I'm just going to put my needle threader go. So that's our little tiny needle book, and of course it's not going to close on its own, so I'm going to take a little piece of seam binding. I'm going to tie that. And again, you could make a closure for this if you wanted to. You could make it a lot more elaborate. So that's our first little element to go into our gift box. So next part is I'm going to take the two thread cards and I'm going to mount them and cut them out. That's all cut and I've inked also, so that's backed onto the craft card. So this is very simple. I'm going to take a piece of trim. This is quite a big one, so I'm going to wrap it around the card a couple of times and I'm going to cut it. Okay, now I have a little jingle bell and I'm going to grab another garment pin, pop the bell on the pin, and I'm going to just put that through the trim to hold that into place. So that's one trim card, and I did the same with a different trim. So they can now go into the box. box like so. So it's getting quite full in there with our little needle book and our thread. Now this is the last card there is in the kit. I've backed it and inked it exactly the same as I did. Now this one is going to be a little bit different. Let me just grab something. I have my some cotton, some buttons and my needles. I'm just going to grab one. Okay. Now I'm going to pull out a length. My sewing skills are absolutely terrible. They are absolutely terrible. Hand sewing. I can't actually do a lot of hand sewing before my hands hurt too much anyway. So I'm going to tie a knot. I've double threaded the needle. I'm tying a knot in the bottom there. Okay. Now this is a perfect way for anybody who cannot sew for toffee to do a button card. So let's grab some more of our red fabric, felt, and I'm gonna just draw around that. This time I'm going to use straight scissors. That's good. Right, now I am not going to be worried about my buttons being all nice and lined up. I'm going to sew a button on there like so. Okay, I'm not going to pull this too tight because the idea is you'll be able to cut the button off if you want to. And I'm going to put my next button in, and you can see that's not even, didn't even come in the right hole there, but that's fine. This is a linen thread, so it's quite thick. It's going to hold okay. So I'm just going to carry on and sew a few buttons on now. Those are my buttons sewn on to my felt. The back is not particularly attractive looking, but that's okay. We're going to glue this. Nobody's going to see it. I am going to just go around there and I'm going to make a knot. Okay, and I'm just going to do a second knot. Cut that off. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to glue this onto the back here. You could sew it if you wanted to. Actually, I think it's going to go that way around. Yep. Okay, so nice and simple. It's a very rustic button card. I mean, it certainly would look nice with some stitching around it, but it is very easy to pop these buttons off if you ever wanted to use them, to just snip them with a pair of little scissors. Okay, so that is our button card. So these are the little elements inside our little sewing gift. I'm going to pop the buttons there, slide those in. Okay, so there are a few other little elements and things that you could do. I have you could attach a button to the top if you wanted to. You could even use the button on the little sewing needle book. I'm just going to glue ink this. And like I said, I have made this as simple as possible, but you could certainly, I mean, you could put the sticker there. You could put, I'm going to put it up here, I think. I just added a special gift. Now the last thing you could do if you wanted is to tie this with more seam binding closed to make it a more closed gift. So should we do that? Let's do that. Take a chunk of seam binding, go around the front, around the top and the bottom. Let's tie a little bow. And you could always hang a little label off there as well. So that is our little gift sewing box. I hope you enjoyed this rather quick and simple instructions on how you could use this printable from the Foxy Rag. Thanks again for purchasing. I hope you're enjoying reading all the articles, and I will see you really soon. Bye.